Blog Talk Radio.
Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of the Piccoli Inn Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show on Blog Talk Radio. I'm your host, Jumpin' John Prevost, and not with me tonight is my usual cohort in crime. That would be the Judge Ray Jaffe. He is without power, without phone, as I'm sure there are many across the listening area. So I hope those of you that are on have had a safe and healthy hurricane. So, not to make light, I know there's been some issues, but it seems like we've gone through the worst, and I hope we're finding everyone able to pick up the pieces. And I know we're all a little bit behind, but we're going to go ahead with tonight's show. So I'm flying solo, and in an unfortunate case of fantasy mimicking real life, it's just me going at it. So tonight, may need your help. We do have our guest call-in line, which is 877-511-1024. And so please feel free to, call in with your questions, with your comments. I'm going to ask for some reader assistance since I am by myself, so don't hesitate. And I also want to make sure that everyone does know we are back at a special half-price promo for our website. Website is www.kickassfantasyfootball.com, and if you use the promo code fantasy, you will get the half price of $9.95, and so it help you set your lineup with weekly rankings and with articles including pickups of the week, trades and trades for, and of course my favorite, if only, by none other than myself. So let's get right into it. We've got a great show tonight. And first of all, I'm going to throw out a couple topics there, and I'd like you all to chime in. I also want to make it known that I'm having issues getting the chat room dialogue up, so those of you that are normally entering in the chat room, I apologize. But then again, we do have our dial-in line, 877-511-1024. So, first question, lots of Eagles fans out there, and I think the question on everyone's mind is it time to bench Michael Vick? And, everyone's expecting a big, turnaround year again for Michael Vick. He didn't do so great last year, had some health issues. He's been able to make it through the games this year, but obviously he's had issues holding on to the ball. And, this late in the season, 7 games in, it's week 8, he really hasn't proven himself. And I know it's a big game against New Orleans. I think if you lose, they're pretty much done. The schedule doesn't get any easier. The NFC East is back to being a tough road. And I think, honestly, I think Andy Reid needs to save his future, and I'm just not sure Michael Vick's the guy. So I think maybe it is time for Nick Foles. It's a pretty easy defense to get him in. He may like the pressure-packed situation. Throw him in against New Orleans and see what he does. I'm not really sure what Andy Reid has to lose at this point. So is it time to bench Michael Vick? And I'd really like to hear what some of your opinions are. And we do have a caller, and I'm going to say it's Jersey in the house, so let's go and see. Let's get our first caller of the evening. And hello, is this Jersey in the house?
Hey, guys, it's Jersey. Good evening. How's everybody doing on such not a bad day after the storm? You guys get hit with a lot of rain?
We got a lot of rain. We've got a lot of rain. We're still getting rain. Winds weren't as bad as we were expecting. Got a few branches down. But other than that, we're good. I'm in Lancaster, so I'm fairly far inland. I know back, towards the Philadelphia area, there's some bunch of homes with power out. And of course, those down the shore, got hit a lot harder than we did. So.
Yeah, we had wind and trees. I'm about 60 miles from Atlantic City. I'm in South Jersey, not far from you guys. And a lot of trees down in our area here and stuff like that, and wind, but no flooding or nothing. So I was wondering how you guys got it. Hey, I'm in a unique situation. I heard you talking about Vic. I hope they bench him, because here's what they got to do. Well, I got Foles as my backup because Brady's on a bye this week. So here's the thing. If they're really serious about not starting Vic, or wanting to go with Foles, Why wouldn't you put Foles in in a relatively easier matchup, even though the line's got some problems against New Orleans? Yeah, so Vic's probably in there. They'll probably win. If Foles in there, maybe they'll win. So, I mean, if Andy Reid's really serious about doing like he says he is, we was going to bench him last year, halfway through the season, and blah, 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 and all this stuff here, then you do it now and you go on, because why would you put Foles in the fire against a hard team? Wouldn't you start him against an easy team?
I mean, the argument against would just be that it's a Monday night game. It's Monday night, isn't that right?
It'd be a Monday night game, right?
Yeah. So, it's your national spotlight, and maybe it's a little more pressure than they would like to get for them. But I mean, some of these guys thrive on that, and if you want to be able to play in the professional football league, you got to play.
Might well find out now.
So
you might well find out.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think it's a fairly easy defense. So get him in there, and I'm not really sure what you have to lose. And so they have Dallas the following week. So you talk about pressure, and that's anytime you're playing an NFC East opponent, they're just gunning for you. So I think I'd rather get his feet wet against the defense. At least he can have some success on it. So that's my take on it.
And if Philly makes the playoffs, I don't think they're going to go for it anyhow. But I wanted to ask you guys. Here's my thing. If Vic is the quarterback, I'm real limited. I would probably have to drop Fulks. I would drop Fulks in. Not that you want to, but Brady's going to quarterback every week anyhow. I have Skelton left going against Green Bay. I have Seneca Wallace, who's available, going against Minnesota. You got Ponder going against Seattle, and Seattle Castle going against San Diego's defense, who I have this week as my replacement D for the 49ers out. You got Hasselbeck going against Chicago. Not at Chicago, but I really don't like that. But out of those five, you got Skelton, Seneca Wallace, Ponder, Castle, Hasselbeck. I mean, which one of them do you like? Because, again, at the end of the week, if I find out that Fulks isn't going to go, then I'm going to need to pick up one of these guys and probably drop Fulks, because I got to put some quarterback in there. I mean, I'm 6-2. I'm in first place. I'm going against a guy that scored 1,200. Good.
Can I say none of the above? I mean, honestly, I think if Vic is starting, you say you have Vic as well, right? So
no, I don't have Vic. I got Brady. See, I got Brady.
You don't have
and
Vic.
then
Okay.
Foles was my backup. Then I looked ahead of time, figuring, all right, if Vic shoots himself in the foot like he should have been all gone, because he actually fumbled the ball this past week, but he was down. So he hasn't corrected any problems as far as I'm concerned.
No, I agree with you. And the fact you can say, they're all trumpeting, oh, well, I didn't lose the game. No, you're right. You didn't lose the game. You certainly didn't win it, and that's really what you're getting paid for. So, being starting quarterback.
He threw no bombs. It was like they managed him to throw the short stuff. He didn't challenge them. So, if he's such a great quarterback and a stud like he supposedly is, then why couldn't they put as many points up as Atlanta did? They didn't match Atlanta. So he didn't do a good job as far as I'm concerned. I mean, he didn't turn the ball over except for the one fumble that they was down on, but he didn't do anything to spark. But, is the line got some problems? Yeah. Won't be different folks. I don't know, but something. If you're not going to have the guy there quarterback in next year for you, then you might as well get this guy. They have about 5 rookies this year. Why not start the guy now and let him get half the season in? Whatever happens, happens.
So let's get back to your question and your quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, Shelton has done nothing for me. He does not excite me, and I realize against Green Bay, so they kind of have to throw. So it could be him by default. Ponder, I think Seattle's going to be mad. I'm not sure I want anything to do with Ponder. And I like Hasselbeck as a veteran, steady presence. And it is against a tough Chicago defense, but I'm not so sure that they can't be had. I'd probably lean towards Hasselbeck. I think if you really want, if you think you really need the upside points, I guess there's a potential higher ceiling in Skelton just because he does have Fitzgerald and they are against Green Bay. But, I mean, I'd be really nervous to put him in. And I think if you want someone steady, nice, steady veteran presence, that's going to be Hasselbeck.
This week I'm going against a guy who's 5-3, I'm 6-2. But he's put up 1,210 points. I've put up 1,200. So him and I are the two highest point getters. he has like Breeze, he has Bradshaw, he has the running back, Scat Back from New Orleans. He's got him. He had Sproles. He's got he's got Wallace. I forget his other receivers. He's got Gronkowski on the bye this week. He's got Chicago's defense. So he does, and he's got Breeze as his quarterback. So with me, I lose Brady. So I got Forte, I got Matthews. Now I was thinking about, and I got Cruz. I was thinking about benching Julio Jones this week and putting in Demarius Moore. I almost did that this past week, but it's a PPR leg, and Julio Jones gave me 28. And I also got Witten. Witten gave me 44 points because of the 18 receptions and stuff like that.
Here's the problem with Jones. If you look back at his schedule, I was just looking at this today, and
right.
he appears to be an every other week kind of guy. He's got great potential, but he really his best games are on the road. And I don't know if it's because they, I'm not even sure why. I'll be honest with you. I'm not even sure why. I don't know if it's because Roddy White, they like to throw at home. Roddy White is better at home. Julio Jones is better on the road. I don't know. But all I'm saying is he's an every other week guy, and he's better on the road. And he did well last week, which means this week will be down, and they're at home. So, frankly, I'm not sure I'm super high on Jones.
So you like Demarius Moore than this week, because Demarius Moore in my league only has a 1 point difference between him and Julio Jones. And like you said, it seems to be if they feature, let's say last week Roddy White, then this week it will probably be Jones. Then the following week Roddy White. Yes, and you throw in the tight end Gonzalez every week. You know what I mean? But like you said,
Moore's going against Tampa Bay, and actually when we'll get to my sleeper pick of the week, I think you'll see why. I'd say not as big a name, but you might want to take the chance on Moore.
Okay. All right. Like I said, it's one of them things there where he's got all his guns other than his tight end. I'm losing my quarterback, who's Brady, who usually puts a lot of stuff up. So right now I'm about 2 point difference or 8 points less than him. But he doesn't have a guy in with maybe 7 points, and I need a quarterback. You know what I mean? So again, these preliminary points mean absolutely nothing. It's what they actually do on the field. We all know that. So, but going forward,
That's
you said you like Hasselbeck first, Skelton second. Then if Fultz isn't going to be starting them.
Yeah, I think that's how it goes. It's not a great situation, but you're right. If you get the start, you might as well try him out because you can't do much better than going against New Orleans. So
that's what I was figuring. So all right, man, I appreciate it very much. Best of luck to you guys this year, or this week, and we'll talk to you again. Thanks a lot.
All right, cool. All right, thank you.
Bye bye.
Well, that was Jersey in the house, our solid weekly caller, so I'd like to thank him for calling in, and we'll talk to him next week. And 2 more questions for you, so if there's any other callers who want to call in at 877-511-1024, we're going to go up against our break real quick, and you can call in after the break, but I'll throw out 2 more questions for you to chime in on. Jonathan Stewart as the lead back, is that going to work? Is that a good thing? Wasn't so great this week, and maybe they need to figure it all out a little bit, but how do you feel about Jonathan Stewart as the lead back? And then the flip side of that, do you trade DeAngelo Williams? And that's going to be a pretty quick conversation coming up. Trade deadline was pushed back until Thursday, but what do you do with DeAngelo Williams? He's really done nothing this year, and do you go ahead and trade him? So those are the 2 questions for the week. Personally, I think I'll answer the second question first, and I think you go ahead, you trade DeAngelo, get whatever you can for him. He's got a pretty big contract, and there's probably a pretty big signing bonus coming up on that. You eat that, you move on, because with Cam Newton in there, you got to keep that fan base going, and if you can get some picks, maybe shore up some offensive line, run blocking, got some good receivers, so get some picks in there and see what you can get for them. So, and the flip side of that is I think you really need a lead back down there. Jonathan Stewart seems a little bit better right now than DeAngelo Williams, and DeAngelo Williams seems disgruntled, so go for it. Really, Carolina has nothing to lose. All right, so if you want to chime in on those after the break, I also want to remind everyone that bye weeks are coming up again this week. It's a pretty big week. You got New England, New York, St. Louis, and San Francisco. So after Alice's more big performance, Tom Brady's weekly big performance, Got a couple quarterbacks on bye there. I'm not really sure what you do with Sanchez. I don't think there's anyone that's really starting him, but Sam Bradford and 2-quarterback league may be in there. St. Louis is out. Steven Jackson's out. Of course, he's sort of been out all year. And so make sure you adjust your schedule accordingly. All right, going against a commercial break, and let's see if my technologically advanced Kindle can handle the commercials real well. We'll see you all in a few minutes.
Now is your chance to experience the new game that's transforming fantasy sports. Fantasy Player Exchange is a new daily game that allows you to compete against friends and fantasy foes for cash prizes. With FPX, you can select 5 players from any active sport. Sign up now at fantasyplayerexchange.com for your chance to beat ESPN Radio's Henry the Commish Brick and win $1,000 cash. Go to fantasyplayerexchange.com to sign up and play today. Remember, that's fantasyplayerexchange.com.
I'm sexy and I know it.
Car Toys, the most innovative car customizing shop in its class. Summer is here, and so's the heat. Better get that remote start so you can cool off in your car in style with your smartphone. Car Toys can install remote start on Mercedes-Benz, push-button start, and stick shift. Reduce that glare with the best 3M window film. And while you're at it, get your car detailed by Car Toys Detail Department so your ride looks, feels, and smells brand new. Car Toys defines what everything for your car really means, from TV to reality. That's why Car Toys is the leader in the industry in car customization. Car Toys' knowledgeable team are the best in their class. Like Car Toys on Facebook and check them out at distinctivecartoys.com.
Fantasy Football, the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. Every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. here on 97.3 ESPN. Join the Professor, the Commish, and Fantasy Insider Matt Lowry for the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. Got a question? Call us. Who should you start? Who should you trade? Who's great? And who just plain The Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. On the web at kickassfantasyfootball.com. Yeah, kickassfantasyfootball.com. And every Sunday at 9 a.m.
I felt that one way up here.
Right here on 97.3 ESPN.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Pickle In Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show on Blog Talk Radio. I'm your host, Jumpin' John Prevost. Flying solo tonight. We wish all the best to the judge and hope he gets his power back real soon. Definitely miss him for the show. All right, let's get back onto it. Don't forget, we have a call-in line, 877-511-1024. Threw a couple topics out there. We got whether you bench Michael Vick, is Jonathan Stewart to lead back? Is that a good thing? And then trade DeAngelo Williams. What do you do with him? So please feel free to call in on those. Also want to remind everyone that we are offering a special half-price promo for our website, www.kickassfantasyfootball.com. And if you use the promo code FANTASY, it's $9.95. And also upcoming show this week on 97.3 ESPN from 9 to 10. But it's the Commish and the Professor. And also back on Blog Talk Radio from 11 to 12. All right, so let's go to our segment. We usually get to this pretty early in the show. I'd like to ask the judge a few questions. He's not here, so I'll try and channel him. And this segment is called For Real. A couple of big performances this week, quarterbacks that are highlighted. I already mentioned Alex Smith. I mean, my gosh, the guy was 18 for 19, only 232 yards, but that's really all he needed. One drop pass, 3 touchdowns. So is Alex Smith for real? And I'm going to go ahead and answer that, and I think he's for real. I think as a weekly start, he's a little bit risky. You can't expect 3 touchdowns every week. Frank Gore's been really a great asset to him. They're really committed to the running game. But, you know, this week they took what they could get, and that was through the air. So that's why he got the 3 touchdowns. The 232 yards, I'm not sure if you really expect much more from him on a weekly basis. And from a starting quarterback, you would really hope for more. So is he for real? Yeah, he's for real. He's a great quarterback to have as a backup. He's real steady. If you're in a 2-quarterback league, you can throw him in there. But I don't know that I'd be counting on a weekly basis, maybe depending on the matchup. His partner in crime that game was Michael Crabtree. He's been on this list before. Michael Crabtree was 5 receptions for 72 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that was on 5 targets. And so the big question is Michael Crabtree for real? And I think he is. I don't know that he's a number 1 receiver, but I think it obviously depends on who you have. But he's starting to really come to his own. this year. He's missed a couple camps. He's had a lot of different offensive coordinators, and so maybe they're starting to settle in. And so is Michael Crabtree for real? Yeah, I think he's for real. I think you get him in, wide receiver, definitely wide receiver 3, if not a wide receiver 2, or if you're playing the flex position. I don't see any reason why you don't get him in. He's been pretty solid over the last couple of weeks. And, I think San Francisco, their offense is humming. So it goes through Frank Gore, but you still need a strong passing game. The next person has also been on this list before, and that is Josh Freeman. He was 19 for 36, 262 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I'm not super excited about the 50% completion. I'm not super excited about the 262 yards, but I did like the 3 touchdowns. I think Tampa Bay, it's definitely a matchup type situation. If you have a kind of a weak starting quarterback, kind of that 9 or 10 range, and you want to throw Josh Freeman in for the start as a upside, depending on his matchup, then yeah, I think he's for real. Again, if you got 2 quarterback league, if you need a quarterback in the bye league, throw Josh Freeman in. Vincent Jackson, they're starting to click. As a matter of fact, we'll mention him up in a little bit. But he's got some weapons. Mike Williams is starting to show little flashes of his old self again. And so, yeah, he's for real. And part of the reason why he's for real, Doug Martin, next on the list. 29 rushes for 165 yards and a touchdown, 3 receptions for 79 yards and a touchdown. And I wanted to put Doug Martin on this list for a reason. And that reason is he's starting to lose a little bit of love. There's a couple games where he wasn't as great. The beginning of the year, he was awesome. One of the fantasy finds of the year. Kind of trailed off a little bit, but he's back in a big way. He's a workhorse in the backfield, caught a couple balls, 2 touchdowns, and there's even, his success has even led to some trade rumors for LeGarrette Blount. So, Blount has tried to put him as a goal line back, and, even for his size, he just really didn't cut the mustard. So Doug Martin is there to stay. The offense is picking up, and frankly, as bad as their defense is, they need a lot of offensive punch. So Josh Freeman and Doug Martin are both for real. Doug Martin's a weekly start. Josh Freeman, not a weekly start. Look at the matchups, but yeah, Doug Martin, get him in. Then this last person on this list is he for real, and I'm throwing him on. It's the Judge Jaffe's special. He was sleeper of the year. A lot of people's sleeper of the year. Really hadn't done much up until last couple of weeks, and that's Titus Young. 9 receptions, 100 yards on 9 targets and 2 touchdowns. And I'm actually a little upset. Didn't get him in on my son's team. One of the reasons why he lost, my middle son, Max, it's his first year. He likes to blame me. So go ahead, blame me. We didn't get Titus Young in. It's kind of a surprising performance through the air against Seattle. They kind of disappointed and a letdown on the defense. But Titus Young is really stepping up. And, I think the injury to Burleson has really given him the opportunity that he probably should have had in the beginning of the year. But if Titus Young for real, well, when you have to double team, maybe even triple team Megatron every single play, leave some people open. Right now that person is Titus Young. So, yeah, I think Titus Young's for real, and I think you try and find a way to get him into your weekly lineup. All right, speaking of lineups, there are some injuries of note that we need to make sure everyone is aware of. And Ryan Tannehill, he is out with a knee injury, so it's a shame. He's really started to pick it up. And another one of the rookie quarterbacks at 5 and maybe 6, depending on what happens with Foles, that are going to be starting. So I think it's more of a week-to-week thing with him. But Ryan Tannehill is out. Another quarterback that's out is Brady Quinn. Got a shot to the head. I'll tell you, when Jersey in the House was talking about Castle, that quarterback situation is just a mess. It's wreaking havoc on any fantasy prospects from Kansas City. Dwayne Bowe's not happy. I don't know that he gets traded, but, Brady Quinn is just not had a good rapport with. Matt Castle maybe a little bit better. Didn't look good in relief last week, so I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Castle DeBow has had some significance in mop-up time. There has been no Quinn DeBow mop-up time, so I'm not really sure what you do. I obviously wouldn't trust Castle. I don't know whether you trust Bow. That's kind of a decision I have. I tend to have a lot of the same players in many of my leagues. Dwayne Bowe's one of them. It's in a couple of leagues. I just don't know what to do with him. There's some leagues I kind of have to start him. Some leagues I have different options, but I'm not sure whether he's going to get a little rapport back with Castle. I just honestly I don't know what to tell you, and I hate to do that, but the situation's a mess. So yeah, there it is. Kansas City at San Diego. The only good thing is San Diego's been pretty poor against the pass. It's a Thursday night game, so they may not have enough time to adjust, especially in their loss to the Browns. So maybe it's worth a shot getting Bow in there. I'm not sure I'd get Castle in there under any circumstance. A couple more injuries. Wes Walker has an ankle injury, and unfortunately I'm not really sure what his situation is. But just keep that in mind when you're making your lineups. Chris Givens has a toe injury. He went out for the game, tried to come back in, just wasn't happening for him. Then Des Bryant has a hip injury. I'm not so sure if it's just kind of bitching and moaning since he got his hand caught out of bounds on that final touchdown that would have won the game for Dallas, but he's apparently has a hip injury. So Des Bryant. And I also want to remind everyone that we do have updates on injured players. That is on our website, www.kickassfantasyfootball.com. So go up there for updates on those 5, plus on some of the previously injured folks like DeMarco Murray and Cedric Benson. Professor has gotten some tidbits on what their progress is. So go ahead, www.kickassfantasyfootball.com. If you haven't joined, we have a half-price promo, $9.95, promo code FANTASY. So go ahead and get in there. Also on the website, we have some ads and some players to trade and players to trade for. So, again, most recent post by the professor, so go ahead and check it out. And speaking of ads, we have a few that we want to throw in this week. A couple players that have been on the radar, but I think you definitely need to go ahead and get them on your roster. We'll start off down in Miami. Daniel Thomas, he came back from his concussion. I have him actually in my Kick-Ass League. And kept him on the roster just because I think Reggie Bush is an injury waiting to happen. And here we go. We got a touchdown from Daniel Thomas this week. So I think he's back to some health. I think it definitely eats into the carries and the fantasy projections of Reggie Bush. And who knows? I mean, not that I ever wish injury on anyone. I have Ben Tate in a lot of leagues. I think if Arian Foster ever gets injury, Ben Tate's a number 1 stud running back. Sometimes you have those, you hold on to them. They don't pan out, but sometimes they do. And when they do, you look really smart. And when they don't, you probably could have used that roster position for someone else. But let's get back to Daniel Thomas. I think he's an ad this week. Cecil Shorts, wide receiver from Jacksonville. I really discounted his up-and-comingness. I just haven't trusted the Jacksonville pass game, but Cecil Shorts has really proven that he's a backer. And once this touchdowns start rolling in, then maybe maybe he's worth the number 2 wide receiver. Right now he's probably a 3 and a flex start, but give Cecil Shorts a shot. Ryan Broyles, we mentioned Titus Young. Ryan Broyles has scored a couple weeks in a row, so the opportunities are there. I'm still not quite sure you really want to trust him, but he's another pass option, especially with Megatron getting double, triple teamed every play, so you might want to give him a shot. And then we've had a Shane Vereen sighting. I definitely stole some carries. I think everyone got a lot of love against St. Louis last week. I stole some carries from Stephen Ridley and a touchdown, but that's not the first Shane Vereen sighting we've had. So it could be a little bit more of a timeshare than the Stephen Ridley owners had hoped. But so Shane Breen looks like he's an ad. And then Ryan Fitzpatrick. I know what you're saying. You're kidding me. He's had a lot of touchdowns. He's had a lot of turnovers. So if you get penalized from turnovers, you got to factor that in. But there's leagues out there where you don't. And, his upcoming schedule, Houston's kind of tough, but then he's got New England, Miami, and Indianapolis. The schedule's looking sort of favorable. So if you're looking desperate for a quarterback, got a quarterback that gets hurt, still need those bye week fill-ins, 2 quarterback leagues, I think you need to add Ryan Fitzpatrick if he's not already on someone's roster.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
I have to be fair, because if the judge had said that, I would have played that. So the fact that I went ahead and suggested Ryan Fitzpatrick, well, there you go. All right, everybody, back up against our second break, and I just want to remind everyone that we do have more information on injuries and ads at www.kickassfantasyfootball.com. This is the Piccalilli Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. I'm your host, Jumpin' John Prevost, and I'll be back in 2 minutes.
We're famous for our buffalo wings. The Piccalilli. When it comes to cooking wings, we're the king. The Piccalilli. Pull up a chair, grab a table, enjoy the atmosphere. Have something good to eat or have yourself around here. If you can't stop in, stop back. Great food, great drinks where everybody is a friend. If you can't stop in, stop back. The Piccalilli Inn.
It isn't fall without the famous Piccalilli Inn. Catch all of your favorite football action at the Piccalilli Inn. Check out the Pick's brand new menu featuring homemade buffalo chicken egg rolls, buffalo shrimp, scallops, and the tender Pick burger. They go great with one of the Pick's ice-cold on-tap beers. Catch every football game at the Pick. Enjoy an awesome meal while you watch your favorite team. The Piccalilli Inn, a Jersey tradition since the 1920s. On Route 206 in Chemong. If you can't stop in, stop back.
The Piccalilli Inn.
Fantasy football owners, the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show is back every Sunday this season with everything you need to cruise into a championship. Join me, the Professor,
and me, the Commish, along with Fantasy Insider Matt Lowry. Get all your fantasy football news as we break down all the players and tell you who to start and who to trade while we take your calls all show long.
We'll see you every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. all season long here on 97.3 ESPN. Check us out on the web at kickassfantasyfootball.com.
Don't let your fantasy issues become a reality. Fantasy Judgment is the premier dispute resolution service for all fantasy sports leagues. Led by attorney Michael Stein, the Supreme Court of Fantasy Judgment will resolve any and all issues or conflicts that arise in fantasy leagues. This includes disputed trades, collusion, abuse of power by league commissioners, lineup and roster errors, draft issues, score discrepancies, and interpretation of league rules. We alleviate the burden for league commissioners and allow everyone to focus on winning their leagues rather than arguing over disputes. Visit www.fantasyjudgment.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Piccalilli Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. I'm your host, Jumpin' John Prevost. And please feel free to call in, 877-511-1024. Again, a couple topics I'm interested in. Got some feedback from Jersey in the house on whether to bench Michael Vick. And then, obviously, the Carolina running back situation is pretty interesting, changing their format to go with a more power run with Jonathan Stewart, and, what do you do with D'Angelo Williams? All right, so we're back. Players to trade and players to trade for. I wanted to get to a couple of these real quick. Professor has posted on the latest update for our website, www.kickassfantasyfootball.com. And his number one player to trade for right now is Vincent Jackson. I alluded to that earlier in the show. Talked about Josh Freeman, talked about Doug Martin, and Tampa Bay. Their offense is really starting to click. So, I think there's a lot of potential in that offense. Vincent Jackson is clearly the number one receiver that offense. That's who he's looking to go to. Had over 216 yards, I believe it was, the other week. So he's not a surprise anymore, but he's the number one player to trade for this week on the professor's list. There's also a surprise or two on that list. So, again, go to our website, www.kickassfantasyfootball.com, and our promo code FANTASY to get half price at $9.95. Now, players to trade, number one on his list is Antonio Gates. Had a really disappointing year this year. A lot of hype coming out of San Diego. Gates is back. He's healthy. I bought into it. I had him as a tight end on a couple teams, and I thought, there's been years past where probably Antonio Gates has won you a fantasy championship. This is not the year. Really hasn't done much. Right now there may still be some name recognition that you want to go for. So Antonio Gates definitely is a player that you want to maybe trade away. All right. I tell you, a couple things that we don't always get to. I like to kind of look at the games, how they went, and I like to maybe take a surprise of the week, who I was impressed with, who I was disappointed in. Oftentimes it mirrors what happened with some of my fantasy teams. So, I'll go ahead and say, I was really a surprise. I was surprised that Chicago went away from the run game. They squeaked out a 1-point win as a last-second Robbie Gould field goal. They started off, I think Forte had about the 4 rushes for 44 yards, got an early touchdown. He had over 60 yards early in the game. I'm not really sure what happened. He ended up with 15 yards, 70 carries. He did have a touchdown, caught a couple balls for 24 yards. So not a bad game for Forte, but especially with those early returns and especially against Carolina defense, which has been very generous against the run, you really expected more for Forte. I ended up losing by 12 points in the league. When I saw the early returns for him, I expected a big game. I was hoping for another touchdown, definitely over 100 yards. That really would have helped, if not won the game for me. But, they got away from that, and that surprised me. Not really sure why it happened, and I think they'll go back and look for it. I'm hoping it's not a situation of, trying to feed the egos for Jay Cutler and Brandon Marshall. That's a surefire way to lose a playoff game. You need the whole team. You need to figure out what's working. And if the run game's working, then go with it. But, trying to force the ball, Brandon Marshall's obviously a talent, but just trying to force the ball to him is not going to work for them. And they got lucky to get away against Carolina with a 1-point win. What I was really impressed with, and for those that have listened to me throughout the weeks, those of you that have read my If Only articles, if they've read my NFC North write-ups earlier in the year, I was really impressed with Pittsburgh, their passing game, their offense. It's really starting to click. I know they lost a couple games that you would think they would have won earlier in the year, but I'll tell you, they're starting to click. They're getting good passing yards from Roethlisberger. I think they could have gotten more, but the fact is their power running game is back. And, I think it's one of the things with having Jonathan Dwyer in there, is it's more of a power running game between the tackles. Mendenhall tends to bounce things outside and makes it harder on the lineman if they're not really sure where he's going. But that's not the case with Dwyer. We've touted him earlier in the year as the running back to own in the Pittsburgh backfield when Mendenhall was out. I wish I had taken my advice. I lost the other week on a huge effort from Dwyer 2 weeks ago. So, I put my money where my mouth was on a lot of my picks this year. That wasn't one of them. I'm regretting that. But, Pittsburgh, their offense is clicking. They have a pretty cushy schedule coming up. Their defense is starting to come on. They contained RG3, which, take it for what it's worth. He's a rookie, but he's been doing pretty good. And Washington has been able to score, but, Pittsburgh defense, they've had some injuries. They're starting to overcome them, starting to get a little healthier now. And I think I'm really impressed with Pittsburgh. And, of course, I'm a Pittsburgh fan, so there could be a little bit of bias in there. But I'm really, really impressed with Pittsburgh. So I think you have to take a look at them as a strong contender for the playoffs. and hope for the best. Now, I alluded to this earlier in the show as well. The Minnesota defense. I'll tell you, it cost my son a win in his league, my son Max. He had -5 points. It was against the Buccaneers, and my son lost by 8 points. He was pretty disappointed, but I tell you, that's what I love about these kids. They bounce right back. For those of us who are diehard fantasy players, get a little bit too involved. We take our losses a little too seriously sometimes, and just got to remember it's only a game, and that's what's great about the kids. I've really enjoyed watching my kids play and, getting them involved, and it's just a good time that they have with their friends and they can talk about it. So he was disappointed, -5 points. He lost by 8, so any type of effort from the Minnesota defense would have won him the game. So I'm really disappointed in that. As for myself, I went 5-2 this week, so I'm feeling pretty good. I had a couple bad weeks and countered that with a couple good weeks. I'm still in good playoff position for most of my leagues. My one league, it's pretty interesting. We have a split season, so 7 games and 7 games. So second half is sort of a blank slate. Go ahead and win the second half, and you're in the playoffs. But everyone except for the team up top is within a game or two of each other, 7-9, 8-8, 9-7, and so it's really coming into focus. I think there could be a case where anything goes. If the first half winner wins, then he gets a choice. He gets a bye for that week. So generally, you only have two wild card teams going in it anyhow. But right now, that could be anyone. We play 2 games a week, and so that's another interesting slant we get on that, and it's pretty good. It's a pretty good format, and so I'm in it in that. I've got a couple ESPN leagues. I got 2 of them where I'm in really solid shape, got a good team. I will admit a couple of poor management decisions have led to some losses, but other than that, I'm roaring strong. I got Matt Ryan and Ben Roethlisberger as my 2 quarterbacks in both of those leagues, so I'm feeling pretty good about it. Again, when I got a player I like, I tend to draft him in a lot of leagues. The only league I'm not really doing well in is in my 16-team league with Casey Joyner, the football scientist. So I enjoy that league. I squeaked into the playoffs last year. Don't think it's going to happen this year. But, again, still a couple weeks left. Anything can happen. I got caught short on keepers. We added a keeper component this year, and I ended up keeping Antonio Brown. That was the best player I had at the time. So that's just going to show you the lack of depth I had in that. Marshawn Lynch this year, so he will most likely be my keeper. But, when you have a 16-team league and everyone gets a keeper, there's not much of a first round to be had. So that's really the only league I'm out of it in. I had a big win in our Kick-Ass League this week. So I had 3 losses in a row after starting 4-0. So this is really a great win. I needed it. Jason Witten's really doing a lot for me in that league, so I'm pretty pleased with that. That was sort of a risky pick. That's starting to really pan out. And I play the Commish next week. So we're both, I think, 5-3. So that'll really be a battle for, if not a playoff spot, definitely seeding in the playoffs. But, obviously we're both looking forward to that. It's always fun to beat the Commish. So have to go with that. So to remind everyone again, you can see this type of information and more weekly projections, start sits on our website at www.kickassfantasyfootball.com. And if you join with the promo code fantasy, you get half price, $9.95. So it's a great deal. One of the best things I think about our site is the aspect of the fantasy judgment. And so we're going to go in our break, and the first commercial I'm going to get to is our fantasy judgment. When we come back, I'll go with studs, duds, and sleepers, and again, take any phone calls at 877-511-1024. But now here's a little bit on the fantasy judgment.
Don't let your fantasy issues become a reality. Fantasy Judgment is the premier dispute resolution service for all fantasy sports leagues. Led by attorney Michael Stein, the Supreme Court of Fantasy Judgment will resolve any and all issues or conflicts that arise in fantasy leagues. This includes disputed trades, collusion, abuse of power by league commissioners, lineup and roster errors, draft issues, score discrepancies, and interpretation of league rules. We alleviate the burden for league commissioners and allow everyone to focus on winning their leagues rather than arguing over disputes. Visit www.fantasyjudgment.com.
Fantasy football owners, it's draft time, and KickassFantasyFootball.com makes it easy.
How do we make it easy?
Projections from the experts, cheat sheets with your scoring rules.
What else?
Articles all season long, waiver wire picks, trade advice, everything you need to win a championship.
How about a free judgment from FantasyJudgment.com, a $15 value?
Now we're talking.
Subscribe today for just $9.95 and we'll throw in a complimentary cruise for two to the Bahamas.
Cruise to a championship with KickassFantasyFootball.com.
We're famous for our buffalo wings. The Piccalilli. When it comes to cooking wings, we're the king. The Piccalilli. Pull up a chair, grab a table, enjoy the atmosphere. Have something good to eat or have yourself a round of cheer. If you can't stop in, stop back. Great food, great drinks where everybody is a friend. If you can't stop in, stop back. The Piccalilli Inn.
It isn't fall without the famous Piccalilli Inn. Catch all of your favorite football action at the Piccalilli Inn. Check out the Pick's brand new menu featuring homemade buffalo chicken egg rolls, buffalo shrimp, scallops, and the tender Pick burger. They go great with one of the Pick's ice-cold on-tap beers. Catch every football game at the Pick. Enjoy an awesome meal while you watch your favorite team. The Piccalilli Inn, a Jersey tradition since the 1920s. On Route 206 in Chemong. If you can't stop in, stop back.
The Piccalilli Inn.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Piccalilli Inn Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show on Blog Talk Radio. So Piccalilli Inn, I tell you, they actually have their own little cult following, especially for the 9 a.m. show, the Commission Professor on 97.3 ESPN. So great food and good time had by all. So Piccalilli Inn, go ahead and try it out. Also want to remind everyone that we are also on Blog Talk Radio from 11 to 12. So right before the football action. So go ahead and chime on in. This is the favorite part of the show. It's unfortunate I can't get to share it with the judge tonight and hope he gets his power back. But this is our stud, and sleeper section. And I'll tell you, we'll start with mine from last week. And I alluded to earlier in the show, Matt Forte. I really thought against Carolina, Chicago would build up a lead. Carolina's been bad against the run, and I thought that I thought that it was going to be a grand day for Matt Forte. Yeah, alas, that was not to be. So he, again, 70 yards on the ground and a touchdown, 24 yards in the air. So it was a good day for Matt Forte, but not, and what you would expect from him. So I'm not sure it was really a studly day. So kind of cost me a win there, but that's all right. Playing him on a weekly basis. They have Tennessee this week. As a matter of fact, I think for my stud and my sleeper, I think I was a week too early on those, and I could have just kept them because I think next week against Tennessee, I think we'll see another shot of Chicago's run game and Matt Forte. But that's all right. I'm going in a different direction. That's okay. My stud of the week, it's a shame. He used to be one of my favorite players. I mean, hey, I love the guy. He really, really had a great career and run hard. But I'm not sure that there's much left in that career, and that would be Steven Jackson.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Yeah, it's just I just don't think it's there. I think that he's maybe lost a step. St. Louis still looks a little befuddled on offense. They haven't quite gotten it together yet. Steven Jackson is my dud of the week. 23 yards rushing, 22 yards in the air. And so, yeah, Steven Jackson just, I feel bad. I'd love to see him get traded to a contender where he can contribute a little bit more because I still think he has something in him. But of course, that would give Richardson a shot at being a true number one running back. But Steven Jackson, stud of the week, and that was a good call. My sleeper of the week, and again, could be the sleeper of the week this week. Normally, we don't like to put really big names in as either a stud or the sleeper. Michael Vick, with the way he's been playing, he's not a big name anymore, and I really thought he was going to go off against Atlanta. To me, it was kind of a put up or shut up kind of day for him, especially against his old team. He's coming off a bye, and so I really thought Michael Vick was going to do some damage against Atlanta. And they needed to. Atlanta really took it to him. Philly just couldn't generate much offense. I know McCoy had 2 touchdowns. Michael Vick was 21 for 35 for 191 yards and a touchdown. He had 42 yards rushing. So, again, you look at fantasy days, and it's what, 14 points maybe, 12 points depending on your scoring. Definitely not really sleeper material. Not necessarily a bad day from him. But the fact that he was all proud of himself for not turning the ball over just really doesn't cut it for me. He played it really safe. As Jersey mentioned, he did fumble the ball. He was down by contact, so it ended up not being a fumble. I'm a little disappointed in Michael Vick. He was my sleeper last week. Could have a great week this week against New Orleans, or Nick Foles could have a great week against New Orleans. So we're just going to have to see how it goes. Let's get to the judges' picks last week because I think he had 1 or 2 good ones there, and his first one he hedged his bets a little bit. His stud of the week, but he put it on the receivers for Denver, and I think he did pretty good. The fact is that Demaryius Thomas had 7 receptions for 137 yards and a touchdown. Eric Decker, only 43 yards through the air, but 2 touchdowns. So pretty good picks. Could have picked either one, and they're both pretty studly. They both did the job. In my one league, I was up by 31 points going into the final game, and my opponent had Peyton Manning and Marquise Colston. Peyton Manning did it pretty much on his own. So I was watching the game on pins and needles, and after that touchdown in the first half to Decker, I knew that my day was over. That was part of my 12-point loss. So it was disappointing, but you gotta give credit to Denver. And I'll have to admit I was wrong on Peyton Manning. He's really proven himself. He's definite starting material at quarterback. So the judge was right on that. Judge was right on their Denver receivers as studs. They were both worthy of that stud performance. So good job on that. His dud, again, I think it was a pretty good call. I alluded to this earlier in the show as well. RG3, Pittsburgh really bottled him up. RG3 had 177 yards in the air and only 1 touchdown, and maybe even more surprisingly, he had 8 rushing yards. So, for who had been the number 1 fantasy player for a while, RG3, not a good week, not a lot of points, and definitely dud material. So way to go, Ray. And then his sleeper of the week, I tell you, I almost made him my dud of the week. Again, I think from now on I'm just going to take one of Ray's picks and make that my dud. Alex Green, he had 54 yards rushing, 28 yards through the air, and maybe you think, well, that's not so bad, but Green Bay needs more. I mean, Green Bay really struggled last week, and they ended up squeaking out against Jacksonville. I know it's 9 points, but Jacksonville was pretty much in it for most of the game. So against that again, we use the word generous run defense. They expect more from a lead back, and Alex Green just really hasn't done much for me. I ended up picking him up in a league or two just because there weren't many other options. But I'm still not playing him, and I'm waiting for Seth Benson to come back. It's going to be a couple of weeks. There is an update on our website, www.kickasfantasyfootball.com, an update on Seth Benson's progress. So I'm kind of waiting for him to get back. He was Ray's sleeper of the week, and not a great call. But I liked his stud. My stud was okay. Wasn't much of a stud. I did well in my dud, and I was a little disappointed in my sleeper. So that was last week. And any comments, 877-511-1024. Please feel free to call in. All right, so let's get a couple minutes left. My stud of the week. Again, I think you'll hear a common theme in here, Ben Roethlisberger. I'm hesitated to put him in as a stud, and the reason why I did is I still don't think he's getting the credit he deserves. And, whether it's because of things that have happened in the past, but Ben Roethlisberger, stud of the week, against the New York Giants. New York Giants, their opponents are throwing for 273.5 yards per game. Ben Roethlisberger is a top quarterback. I'm not going to say top 5, but definitely top 8. I think it's going to be a shootout in New York. Pittsburgh defense is as impressive as they were against Washington. I think New York's kind of a different animal right here. I expect a shootout, and I expect a lot of that through the air from Ben Roethlisberger. So Ben Roethlisberger is my stud of the week. Stud of the week, it's BenJarvus, Green, Ellis against Denver. I think it's just kind of and it has to be. BenJarvus, Green, Ellis has not looked good. He looked like a real plotter this week. Maybe that goes to show a little bit about the genius of Bill Belichick and Tom Brady and that New England offense. He looked pretty good last year. He had never fumbled until coming in this year. He's had a couple fumbles this year. He's not really scoring touchdowns, which is what he needs in order to have much fantasy relevance. And I think it's going to be a tough game for him against Denver. They're going to need to pass. You'll see a lot of yards, especially AJ Green receiving. So that could be a good play of the week. But I'm disappointed in BenJarvus, Green, Ellis, and I think he continues to disappoint. So he is my stud of the week. My sleeper of the week is actually ex-Cincinnati quarterback Carson Palmer. Again, we talked about Jersey and House Call. We talked about Denarius Moore, and I like him this week. If you're going to like Carson Palmer, you got to like the top receiver they have right now, and that top healthy receiver is Denarius Moore. A lot of big play potential, and Tampa Bay is letting opponents throw for 309.6 yards per game. Last 3 games for Palmer has been 253 yards and a touchdown, 298 yards and a touchdown, and then 209 yards, 2 touchdowns. And that's one of the reasons why, again, I don't know that I'd always throw him as a sleeper in there, but he's a quarterback that's been overlooked a lot this year. I drafted him in a couple leagues as backup quarterback, and we ended up picking him up, putting him in. My Pop and I traded Matt Stafford earlier in the year, and we placed Carson Palmer into that second quarterback role in a league that starts 2 quarterbacks. So, I like Carson Palmer. Oakland's at home, and, they do have a running game. It hasn't been great, but, obviously they do have a running game, but their passing game, I think, really, especially, Tampa Bay is going to light it up. Oakland DBs have not done well. So I think, I think you're looking at another high-scoring game. And I think Carson Palmer's definitely got the chops to do it. So Ben Roethlisberger, BenJarvus, Green, Ellis, and Carson Palmer are my stud, and sleeper of the week. All right. If there's any last comments, 877-511-1024. This has been Jumpin' John Prevost. It's been a great hour. I'm excited to come on every week and host the show. I missed the judge this week, but we have a lot of great back and forth. We've known each other for over 10 years, so hopefully we'll get him back next week. And don't forget our website, www.kickassfantasyfootball.com, and its special promo code is fantasy, and you'll get it for half price at $9.95. Then tomorrow you'll see posting of my weekly If Only column. I'll plug that a little bit because I enjoy writing that. It starts out, if only I had played so-and-so. It started off with a little history with my brother. He always says I bitch and moan and say, if I had started him, I would have won. But this column, it's a little bit more than that. I like to get a little bit into why I started so-and-so, why maybe it was the right call, even though it didn't work out, and maybe what to look forward to for the rest of the year. So if only, I write that every week, and I'm pretty pleased with that. And I also, in full disclosure, write down my scores of the week. So this week was 5-2, and again, I'm in pretty good playoff position, but with a big game coming up against Knish in the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football League. Well, that is all we have for the evening. So I want to thank everyone for listening. I want to thank Jersey in the House for calling in. And this is Jumpin' John Prevost signing off from the Pick-A-Lillion Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. Thank you very much.